With Logan Cooley locked up for the long term, the Mammoth's contract focus shifts. We'll tell you who's in the crosshairs to sign next.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in once again to Locked On Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined as always by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and together we're the dynamic duo that brings you Locked On Mammoth each and every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen when it comes to the Utah Mammoth hockey team. Today, we're going to look beyond the Logan Cooley contract. Obviously, it's huge to have him in-house, 8 years, $80 million, $10 million on the AAV. But Robyn and I today are going to talk about who's next, and more importantly, even than who's next, is how it's going to reshape the roster of what is now a cup contending hockey team. So we're going to get into that on today's show. Before we do that, I need to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Robyn, I think everybody is still going to be celebrating well into the weekend. We don't see Tampa Bay until the weekend. A couple of days off here for the Mammoth. I mean, great things at Cooley's in hand. And I'm sure as soon as Bill Armstrong exhaled, he then had to sharply inhale, look back at the roster and go, well, my work is never done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to look back at the positive real quick again, that the Logan Cooley contract is done. I want to point out real quick, Tom, that for the price of one Kirill Kaprizov, the Mammoth have both Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley until at least 2033.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, that is amazing.
I mean, Kaprizov is 40 goals, probably 80 to 100 points on his best year. Maybe he hits 50. But you're right. I mean, think about that. The $17 million that he gets to produce 100 points, you have spent that $17 million to produce maybe as many as 200 points. Probably realistically 170.
Yeah. Between the two, yes.
Yeah, you get 170 points of production out of that. So that's kind of where the money goes. And Robyn, I know you and I were concerned that it might creep up even higher. It didn't. It's a great value signing. And by the way, if you have not seen our show on the Logan Cooley signing, go ahead and watch that one after this one. You're definitely going to want to take a look at that one because we really do go in and break it down. But Robyn, now we have to turn our attention, and we talked about it a little bit last show.
Yep.
But now we have to turn our attention to who is coming up next. And importantly on that, the focus has to be on signing certain players, and we talked about this last time, and letting certain players go, either traded for assets or whatever the process may be, and the realization of, look, you're just not going to keep everybody.
Exactly. That's the reality of running a sports franchise, not just a hockey franchise, but a sports franchise, right? Because every single league has some kind of salary cap or the max that an owner is willing to spend or whatever it might be. So they have to shuffle things around. They can't afford this player. They can't bring that one in long term. And really decide whether or not this player is viable to keep in the long term. These are some decisions that had to be made, Tom. And really to kind of look at things pretty quickly, there are two players who are notable expiring, I would call them notable expiring contracts that I feel like should definitely be high up on that radar at this point.
I agree with you. And I think probably the most obvious one is the guy who I picked as my 10-game MVP, and that's Nick Schmaltz. We've got to start, I think, with talking about Nick Schmaltz because this is his contract year. And boy, is he starting it like it's a contract year. He's getting down to business here.
Don't you just love that phenomenon that players have some of their best seasons of their career on contract years? It's no surprise that we see that happen all the time, right? Because they know there's some money to be made, especially now that the salary cap is going to go up an extra $10 million, or projected to go up an extra $10 million from this year to next year. So,
well, and certainly the Mammoth are hoping that, because right now the projected cap space is only 4.5. So if you're going to slide in that brand spanking new contract there of $10 million for Logan Cooley, you better hope it does. But Robyn, so out of the players who are expiring next year, so Nick Schmaltz is a guy on there. Kerfoot is another one. Barrett Hayton is RFA this year. Kevin Stenlund is up this year, as are Karel and Yamamoto. Out of all of those, look, let's be realistic. Once again, I don't believe you're keeping everybody, but is it fair to say that as of right now, Schmaltz is your number one priority, maybe even ahead of Kerfoot and ahead of, and I'll say ahead of Hayton, simply because Hayton is going into an RFA year and you can always qualify?
Yes, I mean, I'll say it's big in that sense, although like I have that slight disagreement because I think Hayton's a little bit bigger, mainly because of his age, right? I feel like he's the kind of player that we have discussed. We have discussed at length of what Barrett Hayton's role is as a center, and we really feel like he can fit in pretty well as a number 2C, down the road, right? Because Cooley's eventually going to be your number 1C. Right. I have no doubt about that. So that's one that you want to lock down. But Nick Schmaltz has been a part of this core for a long time. He's been around for a while, and he knows. Like he and Clayton Keller are like best friends. Like they are best friends, and it shows. It's very obvious when you look on the ice and just kind of and just any other aspect of the game.
And here's the thing, too, is that both Hayton and Schmaltz would be in line for a pay increase. The thing is, Schmaltz right now looks like a guy you want to keep. And I said on the last show, I want to see him do this for a full season so we know that this is for real. But Robyn, here's the thing. Does he become one of those players who kind of prices himself out of you being able to keep him? And does he decide to chase money versus continuing to build what's going on in Utah? And I believe the culture in Utah is going to be something that does persuade players to either stay or come. But boy, this is a tough one, because with the cap going up, Schmaltz could really cash in.
He could definitely cash in. And I think especially if you try to quote test the market and someone is really willing to give him that money, right? I think that is the most important aspect. Now, Tom, I don't know how much to take from any of these reports, because I don't believe the reports to be substantiated yet, but there are some, and I feel like it's worth mentioning, that saying that there is some kind of negotiation trying to in the works between Schmaltz and Utah. And my understanding is that they're not close yet. They're not even.
And here's the deal: is 5.8 is where Schmaltz is now. So figure that's already rolled into the cap hit. And when we were talking about the money and the extension that'll be there, some of this money that we'll look at throughout the books will be coming off. Again, some of these players are just simply not going to be coming back. But how are you going to get Hayton in there? And again, you may have to qualify him for 1 year, but that puts him to UFA. And that's a problem with that. Even if you go with a 2-year deal, that still puts him in UFA. But for Schmaltz, he's 29 right now, Robyn. This is probably his last chance to sign a big time deal.
This is like right here coming out, coming peak prime, right? This should be his prime. And I think it's showing it based on how he's been playing so far this season. But the aspect of what you brought up is we need to see, and I feel like Utah wants to see what he does this entire season, right? Because last season, he was MIA, right? And everyone was critical about that. There were a lot of people in our comments wondering when Nick Schmaltz was going to get traded.
Yeah, that came up more than a few times. And last year, not the worst season, 82 games, 63 points. But let's face it, right now he's on a 90-point pace, maybe even 95. 63 and 93 are two completely different salary structures.
Oh, yeah.
And he's been a 50, 60-point guy. He was 63 points last year, 61 the year before, 58, 59, if you look back over your shoulder. So that is, I think, what the Utah Mammoth, for the most part, are going to point to. They may say, if they're talking right now, well, you know what, Nick, you're having a great start, and that's awesome. And at 29, we really do hope you're turning into a 70, 80, 90-point guy. However, your trend has been, even in your, I'll call them maturing years as a forward, you've been a 60-point guy, a high 50-point guy. So I think it's in Utah's best interest to wait and see if Nick Schmaltz is going to regress to the mean, or if this is Schmaltz taking the next step.
And I mean, of course, on both sides, you're hoping it's the latter. If it is the latter, though, that means that if you're Utah, you're going to have to make some sacrifices if you want to bring in Schmaltz for one last big contract.
And Robyn, to your point, if they're not close right now, just with me not knowing a single thing about negotiations, that is what it sounds like, is Utah's pointing to, hey, you've been a 60-point guy for us.
Yep.
That's what we know you to be. If you're going to be a 90-point guy this year, you're going to have to prove it to us. But if you're coming in asking for money like you're a 90-point guy without ever having done it at 29 years old, I need convincing.
Yeah.
So that could be the gap.
I think, Tom, you and I, we need we want to see that too. We want we need to be convinced to even see that. I mean, we're not the one paying them, right? But we talk
not my money.
Right? Not my money, but we are talking about what he's worth, and that's what his mean has been, right? He's been, within the 50, 60 point range. If he stays on this pace, great. But I feel like a lot of hockey teams have been caught in the middle of something like this, and they spend a lot of money, and all of a sudden they're stuck in this cap jail where they can't really figure out how to get out of it, because now all of a sudden that's just dead weight.
Exactly.
And I don't want that to happen. I think Schmaltz is a great hockey player, and I don't think it's going to end up being that bad of a contract. But Utah still needs to be very cautious, and I think that's what they're doing at this point.
Yeah, you don't want it to become an albatross for sure. And Robyn, we have to talk about the middle yet. We have to talk about Barrett Hayton. We have to talk about Kevin Stenlund, who's also up at the end of this year. So why don't we get to that here in just a sec? And today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Hey, hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on the Mammoth. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I recently used the Game Time app. I've told you about my experiences with this before, whether I'm getting baseball tickets, hockey tickets, football tickets, doesn't matter. It couldn't have been simpler. It just takes minutes. I love that what you see is what you pay. That's one of my favorite things. There is nothing that's going to surprise you at checkout. What you see is what you get. Speaking of what you see, you can get your seat view. And that's huge for me, because I want to know, where am I sitting? What does it look like? Who's going to be in the way? Is nothing in the way? Is this my dream seat? I love it. Fantastic stuff. You can even find NHL tickets, believe it or not, for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Back here on Locked On Mammoth, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño here with you. Hey, if you like what you hear, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. I know a lot of folks who are sampling the show here. We're seeing the numbers jump. And by the way, thank you. Every day, you guys are doing a great job. I know some of you are helping us get the word out. Every interaction, every comment, every thumbs up, every like, all of that really helps us to get the show out there. But hey, it's free. Go ahead and subscribe, and we'll be right there with you every single day throughout the remainder of the NHL season. So Mammoth contract focus and possible roster changes is the focus of this episode. Robyn, we have to look at the center position, because whether or not Jarome Iginla is an NHL center or an NHL winger, I think doesn't exactly factor into this conversation at this point, because there's a jumping off point coming up here for a couple of big names up the middle.
It absolutely, and I feel like it definitely starts, Tom, with Barrett Hayton when we're talking about that, because he's on an expiring deal, and something you mentioned earlier in the show is that Barrett Hayton's expiring deal right now is an RFA status. So yes, Utah can qualify him. However, here is the caveat, Tom, about that. Is Barrett Hayton is arbitration eligible, which means that he or the Mammoth could decide to go to arbitration and be like, hey, we think you're worth this. And we've already discussed at length that arbitration can really burn a bridge. And it's not good, because you're essentially having a team telling a player, hey, this is why you don't deserve the money you're asking for. Like, it's not good. And I think that's why this is going to be a very key year for Barrett Hayton as well.
Here's the thing. A healthy Barrett Hayton, because he hasn't always been healthy, but a healthy Barrett Hayton is a half point a game player at the NHL level and is a pretty decent two-way center. To me, half point a game guy, he should probably be centering the third line. But that's what I would want in a perfect world. In a perfect world, your 1-2 punch down the middle becomes Cooley and Iginla, if Iginla is able to handle being an NHL center.
Yeah, I think
we're not there right now.
I think more people might end up having Iginla slide over the wing, which is fine. But I feel like even then, in a couple of years from now, Daniel Ye is coming, and he's a center.
And again, here's the thing: is if you're asking this at home and you're wondering, well, why, if a guy's listed as a center, do they end up playing wing? Playing center in the NHL is very difficult because of your defensive responsibilities, because of the face-off responsibilities. There's just a lot that goes into being a good quality centerman in the NHL, and some players never quite get the hang of it at that level. They can excel at all the other levels, but the NHL is just a different kettle of fish. And so it then becomes easier to play wing because you don't have as much responsibility on the defensive side. You're not responsible for the faceoffs. It's just a lighter load, and it allows you to play a different game. So there's no guarantee Desnoyers, Iginla, or anybody who's a center. If you actually look at the roster sometimes, it's kind of funny. There's like 7 or 8 people listed as a center. None of them play center. They're all wings. They're converted. But at one point,
I mean, it's better to have a wing who can a center who can play a wing than a true wing and force them to play center. Because
yes. Yeah.
Because true wingers like Dylan Guenther, they're goal scorers. They're going to focus on playing along the boards and getting, and crashing the net and be the offensive talent they are. And they don't sure, they'll have some defensive responsibilities as well, and some other really major responsibilities, but center is tough. It's a tough.
You got to be skilled and smart.
Yeah,
to play center.
And I think that's why, I've loved what Hayton has been able to do, right? And then it's crazy, Tom, because depending on who you ask, I feel like there are like 2 different camps. There are the people who love Barrett Hayton and think he is definitely he should definitely be and has a really great ceiling as a top 6 center. And then there's people who absolutely hate Barrett Hayton, wondering why in the world he's playing first line minutes with Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller right now. It's crazy. There's no median with Barrett Hayton.
Because he has to be. Robyn, I'm the third option. I think he's a third line center, and I think he's a really good third line center. But because of the way things shake out right now with this Mammoth team, I mean,
Mhm.
Stenlund is an excellent fourth line center, could be a third line center as well, but he's an excellent fourth line center and a great option for defensive zone draws, starting OT, all of that.
You're right.
I think they're very good players, and I would want to keep both of them as long as they are affordable and team friendly. The problem then becomes, just like we're seeing maybe with Schmaltz, although again unconfirmed, is having a great start to the season. Well, anytime you take a guy who, even if I say, look, you're really a 3C, that doesn't matter. Why? Because you're playing 1C. He's playing that first center line position. Does he want to get paid like a first center? That then becomes the rub, because that is expensive.
Right now, Barrett Hayton's cap hit is $2.65 million.
Minuscule.
If
he wants to get paid like a first line center, that's going to quadruple.
Yeah, it's definitely going to take a huge jump. Now, I wonder exactly how much of a jump is he really expecting, and I feel like that's going to be the decision whether or not the Mammoth actually try to keep him or let him, or whatever it might be.
Well, they can't really let him go right now because they don't have anybody who's really NHL ready to step into that role. That's the problem. You can't really let him go, but you don't want to get fleeced either.
Yeah, it's a tough it's a tough thing to walk across, because let's say you qualify him, right, and then it goes to arbitration. And then let's say arbiter rules in favor of Barrett Hayton, right? We're thinking, again, we're all thinking hypotheticals here, right? Now that could potentially put the Mammoth in a very sticky situation cap-wise for other players.
It could. Although I think the numbers would bear it out for the Mammoth, unless he turns it around and has a monster season.
Yeah,
but
if he has like a 90-point season and is, as a center, which
he's not on pace for that. He's half point a game again. 9 games, he's got 4 points. That's just, I think that's who he is. 82 games, 41 points. That is who he is.
I've always seen him as a very, as a fairly, as the way you put it, like a two-way center, right? He works both, both sides. I think that in the NHL, you need a guy like that.
Well, you need several guys like that, which is why also Kevin Stenlund, I think, is a priority for me to re-sign. Robyn, before we hop on to talk about defense here, looking a little further down the road. So you've got Carconi, Kevin Rooney, who's up at the team right now. We haven't even really talked about that, but he's up because of Kerfoot being on IR. Kerfoot's up this year. Stenlund, also Yamamoto's done this year with his contract. He'll be UFA. But Lawson Crouse, $4.3 million through next season. And then he becomes probably the biggest target in the crosshairs, not for this summer, but the following summer. Mm-hmm. What are they going to do with Lawson Crouse?
That is the big question. I mean, Lawson Crouse is, he's got the permanent A, right? He's one of the only players that has I think he is the only player that has a permanent A. Others kind of just might rotate, like Sergachev, I know, rotates in as one of those options. But it will be curious to see what happens at that point. Now, if you're the Mammoth, you're just hoping the salary cap just keeps going up, right? Like if it's like 105 next year and then 115 next year, or whatever it might be, right? You're just like, all of a sudden you're like, all right, let's just keep it going on this bank and just spend what we can, because we can.
Right. But Crouse at 28 in 2 years, this is going to be his contract, his last big contract to sign going into his 30s.
And and I feel like it's well known by so many people that age, I think it's this age range, 27, 28, 29, 30, right around there, that's when you sign your last big contract. Because once you get to 32, 33, 34, things start to kind of it's like you're on the wrong side of 30, right? Things start to go a little bit down. You might not, unless you're one of those players who are, for some reason, just won't stop aging. which those are
Yeah.
very rare.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are all problems they're going to have at forward. All right. We have to talk about the defense here because we got to get to this on the show and looking at the ripple effects here. So now that Logan Cooley is done, that was the biggest one. Who's in the crosshairs? Now we're going to look at the blue line.
And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It just keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com, sign up today, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño back here to wrap it up on Locked On Mammoth by looking at the defense. Who is in the crosshairs now for the Mammoth looking ahead? We talked about the forwards and some pretty big names coming up in some big situations here. Robyn, the possible roster changes on defense, I think, spell themselves out a little bit more clearly. Guys coming up at the end of this year, Jusso Valimaki, who hasn't even played yet this year, and maybe he's back by Christmas. Ian Cole is also $2.8 million. That'll be up this year. That's why I think Dmitry Simashev is so important at $950 for his entry-level deal. That'll be through 27-28. And then Nick DeSimone has been back on that one-year deal, and I think he's a great value signing. But can you and I agree that barring some kind of crazy happenstance, that Cole and Valimaki are either traded or are just not brought back by the time we get to the summer?
Yeah, when it's all said and done, I feel like their roles with this franchise are done. It's not that it's not any bad on them. I feel like it's just the Mammoth. They're going in a completely different direction, and there's just so much defense who are ready to come up, who are ready to make an impact, and we're able to see more. I mean, we're really lucky that we're able to see like Dmitry Simashev come now, right? And he's been a absolute pleasure to watch. But there are more guys who want to make an impact, and down in the AHL level, and quite frankly, who might also be still in juniors, might be in college or whatever, because this is what Utah and also Arizona did for a while in the last several drafts. They drafted big defensemen who, in years from now, will make a big impact. I mean, we've talked about Artem Duda. He's gonna make his way soon as well.
Yeah, Duda, Lamoureux, I think, is another one. Scott Perunovich is kind of interesting to me because he could become a bit of a stopgap guy for them if DeSimone decides to go elsewhere, or if they just want two of those type of players. Because, of course, Sean Durzi, I'm really hoping that Durzi does not turn out to be injury prone.
Especially at that cap hit.
Yes. So now, yeah, I know you get to stash the cap hit, but man, you'd rather have Durzi on the ice than Durzi on the IR. So that to me is a bit of a concern. But really, the only defenseman they've got to worry about. So we know Cole and Valimaki are done this year, but I mean John Marino, not even this year, but next year at $4.4 million. I think that's a pretty good target range. He'll be due a raise. But the crazy thing is, if you're going to look at one individual contract for a team that pays a defenseman, they'll look at another team that pays a forward. I think Rob and the Mammoth are going to have to do the job of convincing their players that, look, you guys got to hit for the average here, because it's the only way we're going to continue to build this team into one that's going to win a Stanley Cup. Yeah,
absolutely. And I will say this, Tom, it does feel nice that like half the defense is tied up through 2028.
Yes.
It's nice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, there's still the question mark around Durzi if he can actually have a fully healthy season. But that's, knock on wood, keep your fingers crossed, do whatever you need to do. But I mean, Ole Mata and Nate Schmidt on fairly friendly deals.
Yep. I mean, they're not expensive at all, especially with the cap going up. They're not expensive. I think those are good value as well. So, I mean, Robyn, defensively, I think now it's kind of a matter of, okay, we'll talk about an extension for Marino, but it's a matter of just getting the kids to mature a little bit more and get ready to take on some NHL level roles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we mentioned some of the kids already. I feel like, and this is something that it's based off the scouts as well as John Ferguson Jr. is taking a look at exactly what like Duda, Lamoureux, Zuber, and whoever is doing in Tucson, right?
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be, quote, supposed to be the next guard, right? They're supposed to be that one that are next. They're supposed to be coming in next and be the next big thing. Now the thing is, Tom, something that we've already discussed is defensemen take a little bit longer to develop. So in the meantime, and we've already talked about Ian Cole and Jusso Valimaki probably being done here. When something we'll discuss also later on when we get to that point, but will Utah get a stopgap in between, or will they just see how these guys do and give them a cup of coffee and be like, you know what? You guys deserve your chance. Let's see how you do at the NHL level. Throw you out there and get you those minutes.
I think, I really think it's going to be a matter of that development here, and not only this coming year, but the year after that, seeing where those guys are at. And again, it's going to allow you to move on from the Coles and the Valimaki contracts. And, Simashev on the ELC is very friendly, but then you've also got those younger players on their ELCs. That really helps. And that is the other thing too that's crazy, Robyn, is this year Dmitry Simashev is the only rookie on the Utah Mammoth. Honestly, next year, they're probably going to need to have 2, maybe 3 rookies crack that lineup if they spend up to the cap. And that's going to be, or they have to get some value signings, because you can value sign a backup goaltender. And that's the other thing I just want to talk about real quick is I think Vanacek is going to be looking for a deal as a starter. If he doesn't find one, I think he'll stay. But I think Vitek Vanacek came to the Utah Mammoth looking to put together a good season with good numbers and get himself back as a number 1 in an NHL crease, because right now it does not appear that will happen for him in Utah. So I don't know that he's going to stay, but I feel like they'll want to spend about the same money in the backup market, no matter who that goaltender turns out to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and the goaltending situation, Tom, that'll be for a whole nother conversation as well.
Oh, there's so much going on there. But Robyn, I think so.
I'm just excited for Rabel to come at some point. I feel like it's
at some point. Yeah, at some point. But now that you have, the ability to make money in college playing hockey, it's changed the equation a little bit as far as the hurry to turn pro that maybe isn't as urgent anymore. But Robyn, so just real quick to wrap this up. So, I mean, we're circling, obviously, Schmaltz. We didn't really talk about Kerfoot. Kerfoot's on IR right now. I just want to finish off with a thought about Kerfoot. At 31 years old, can't play center, can't play the wing. Do you need to see Kerfoot healthy for the rest of the season to determine what his value could be going forward? Where do you stand on him?
It's tough because I've really liked Alex Kerfoot on this team. I think he's an important asset, both as a quote vet guy who understands how the game works and can help some of the younger guys, but also just a spirit piece. I feel like he's someone that you just love to have on your team. And again, that's something that hey, you can try to find someone else like that because skill level or injuries or whatever it might be aside, but I still want to see a few games. I want to see a few games just to decide. I mean, at this point, is he going to get his similar contract or maybe even less? I mean, who knows? But we'll see. I mean, Kerfoot at this point is 31, right? I mean, We talked about being on the wrong side of 30. It's tough to try to get raises after that, even this, whether you're injured or not.
a lot of times you see a player that age will take the security of a 3, maybe even a 4-year deal and less money.
Most
as
love
opposed
those
to
3 years. Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's a good
yep.
one to
Give,
have in it.
yeah, give me 3 years at this price, we're good, as opposed to 1 year at maybe even $1 million more, but that's 1 year. And what could happen when you're 32, 33, 34? You know, you don't want to go year to year. You take your 3-year deal.
And even not only that is like on those 3 years deals is front load it like a signing bonus. That way they're at least okay, we're okay, we're secure.
Right. Right. And then your cash outlay is much less towards the back end. And that does make that contract more movable if it does come to that. So at least to some of the bottom dwelling teams, they're more concerned about the cash outlay than the cap hit. So, okay. Robyn, I think we've done a good job of breaking it down. If anybody's got questions, so you can always drop us a comment down there, especially on the YouTube side. But on social media, Robyn, where can folks track us down?
Yeah, you can find us everywhere on social media, primarily active over on Twitter/X at Locked On Mammoth. That's at Locked On Mammoth. You can find us also, or find me at Robyn_Leaño. I, again, primarily active over on Twitter/X. I spend so much time there. It's actually kind of unreal. But you can also email us too. If you're someone who still likes to email, you can email us lockedonutahhockey@gmail.com.
You can find me over on Blue Sky at Tom Talks and on Twitter at Callahan on Air. So, all right. Well, let us know your thoughts. Who is in your crosshairs? Who are you letting go? Who are you trying to keep? Let us know. Whatever your answer may be, hey, we'll have some more debates too as this whole season goes on, because believe me, this issue is far from settled. So for Robyn, I'm Tom. Thanks as always for being a part of Locked On Mammoth.